Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight's episode. What is the value of human existence uh, in relation to the vastness of space? If human beings have evolved to a certain point, where is this evolution going? What is it going beyond? Fear not the emergence of an advanced civilization. You see, progress is a part of our lives. And the conscious awareness to how progress is done is by being aware of the participation of the journeyer. If we considered that the current civilization we see now is civilization 1.0, pretty much Mr. Within wants the children of the future generations to start building civilization 2.0. And the inspiration for this idea came when I realized rather than spending all the time, imagine a system has been built, a system has grown out, regardless of the decisions our ancestors made and those before us. Some system was put into motion. Now, this system has reached a certain point, and sometimes when you look at it, you find archaic values. You find as if it was programmed by ancient eyes, the system. And when I say a system, I'm not just speaking about an external system, it could be also an inner system, a sort of recognition pattern. So, one view is we rebel and we go, like the movies show us, kind of change the current system. The other approach is we build a new system. And those of the old system, if they want to turn to the system, they can. You see, civilization has been put into a stalemate through a sort of materialism and through a sort of dependency on repetitive patterns. You see, of course, the human being has to eat, the human being has to drink water, the human being has to sleep, the human being has to move between different body temperatures, you know, or and stabilize in room temperature, for example. So we kind of see that the attention of human beings is the pavement of their future, or is paving their future. In a science fiction work of mine, I had done something which I found to be very useful on a social level. And in my science fiction novel, The Messenger of Giants, this giant science fiction novel I'm working on, it's set in the year 5025, and the society, and there are, of course, nine parallel dimensions of Earth, and the society is a society where that's divided between the traditionalists and the futurists. And the traditionalists are all those human beings considering time linearly. So they're beings that believe they're going from the past to the future. But the futurists are all the beings that are considering the opposite of that, which is eternalhood. So that means it's a society and civilization where the personalities Some appear eternal to themselves, some appear non-eternal. And because it's a science fiction novel, there's, for example, conscious robots in it, you know? And so the robot appears as an eternal program, always ever present. I feel that a digital revolution is coming, an incredible one. I feel that we will, as human beings, natural, individual, conscious beings, fear unnatural collective modalities. And pretty much it's a unique moment in the history of our civilization where nature has to be conscious of hurting itself. You see, the human being primarily has value to itself. Right now, if you wonder who cares about you as a human being, you'll see the first person that cares about you as a human being is yourself, your sense of personhood. That means, as much as the archetype or the egoic construct can have a desire, that desire still realizes that it has to keep the body going. So strangely, when I kind of looked at the no mind, and especially our inner realms and our subjective realms, its programming is with attention, and I would say to some degree subtle evocational effort and intention. You see, pretty much all mystical traditions, they looked at man in the world, and they saw man was going through an individual journey. They wondered what is the opposite of man, and they wondered about a collective journey. This is why in certain mystical circles you can hear certain people talking not about their past lives, not about their future lives, about their universal history. I've been kind of privileged to hear some people speak like that, you know? And it's as if the person has a certainty of their inner realms where it's as if the dude remembered something as vividly, as they remember, for example, their keys or something, you know? And so I realized that human beings are not just material beings and are not just being influenced by material phenomena. They are also being influenced by internal phenomena, immaterial phenomena, subjectivity, abstraction. When we look at imagination, Mr. Within says that it's like what I tell people is that it's like your own private room. Before I vocalize these talks, they are just present in my universe of conception, how my eyes have opened that day, you know? You see, I feel history is oscillating, and the archetypes are stretching. What that means is when man, it's like this: certain civilizations believe the unknown was here first, then the known. Certain civilizations believe the known was here first, then the unknown. If the known was here first, then the unknown, it's another way of saying as if truth was here before the illusion, you know? The other way is as if seeing the illusion first, then the truth. When you see the illusion, it means your inner realms don't trust the moment. Any human being who's caught into this mindset of simulation, the simulation modality of, perception, I'm telling you, it's because your inner realm still thinks it has to be something in a changing world. You see, it's as if here's the thing: we want to work with a mind, and when we come to look at the mind, science and neurology has a lifeless approach. At least psychology acknowledges the unconscious, but I believe neurologists, they feel as if it's the opening up the engine of a car, but it's like this car you know what it is? It's like the brain is kind of like an engine of a car, When the person is driving somewhere, when there is a direction, the consciousness emerges as active, so the vehicle suddenly can be seen to move. When the person is not in the vehicle, you can open up the hood as much as you want, but there is no force moving the vehicle. That means if you wonder about what is the primal source, cause of the movement of your vehicle, before gas, it is the hand of the person whose keys go into the engine, you know. So that's the thing, that when it comes to the study of phenomenology that is inner, that is more inert, that is internal, it means that the human being is acknowledging a different relationship of their own constitution, as existence in their experience. So your experience, your mind is like a spotlight, and your body and world are like what's found in this spotlight. Okay? The spotlight is not the actor and is not the stage. Do you know? And the actor and the stage are not the spotlight, but we require the spotlight in order to see the actor. So, in other words, we require awareness before we can be a self, and awareness to being before we can do anything, right? So, when I speak about the emergence of an advanced civilization, right now the civilization is in an era of where I said, where the era of language worship, pretty much, I declare its end. I'm like that kind of guy, in history who's like, oh, species has been worshiping language for, like, such a long time. Okay, enough of that. And so, really, what I'm trying to say is that as human beings wonder about what an advanced civilization looks like, they are simultaneously wondering of what a self in that advanced civilization looks like. And so I realized that ideas have to be welcomed into the mind. It's not just about learning something, guys. It's not just about being exposed to a certain form or data, in this life. Life is not just information, and it's not just a binary system of matter. It's like 0, 1. The binary system is it's so poetic, because it's like nothing something, nothing something. And when we look at the human experience, like 0, 1, 0, 1, consciousness, unconsciousness, person is awake, the person is asleep, the person is awake, the person is asleep. Sometimes in their dreams they're awake, that considers counts as a sort of awakening. So it's like the person is awake in multiple ways, is asleep in one way. Do you know, my greatest proof of oneness actually came from deep sleep? That means in deep sleep, there is no concept. Tell me, who worries about their bills in deep sleep? Who suffers who is regrets, or who is a saint and a sinner in deep sleep? In deep sleep, there is conceptual absence, but not existential absence. There is experiential conceptual absence. That means we are no longer experiencing the moment as a concept, so it is not kept in time. So I feel when we are in deep sleep, we're actually not even the ego doesn't exist. It's as if the soul's kind of, stepping out of the swimming pool for a little bit. And by the soul, I mean the whole swimming pool. So what it is, and the reason I even chose this fascinating picture, I don't know who drew it, but whoever drew it, it's like I respect the artist, because it is really showing that man has understood his objective reality, his objective realm, and let me say it like this: his objective self in realm, and his uh, subjective self in realm naturally, but now is moving on to rediscovering the individual, either through new natural archetypal landscapes or through a technological dimension. Do you see? It's as if I am starting to see all the things written in the Upanishads, all the ancient mystical traditions resurface, but through a different language, through the language of modern technology. That means this concept of the simulation theory is the same yogic mindset that we got to renounce the materialistic illusion of the world, you know? And children in cyberspace culture, let's say 150, 200 years from now, are going to be in certain states of mind where they may not even know if they're real or not. Do you know the existential confusion that could come from that? In my science fiction novel, I've created something very cool, I think. It's this idea that there's this programmer named Dante. And this programmer named Dante is this programmer who has made a program called HH. And HH stands for heaven and hell. And he's pretty much a person who has trapped many human beings in digital realms, and he did it as a sort of way of reducing human experience, but in a way it was as if like he was a person who trapped many natural human beings in artificial digital simulations where they can't even tell if they're in nature, if they're in a simulation or not. And so the chapter is called The Ocean on the Mountain Peak, where the main character Rasul and his like childhood friend robot buddy like his classmate robot buddy, you they are trying to go and find this Dante, you know. And what's something cool that they realize is that Dante is not a guy. It's like this very very attractive, blonde girl, you know. And they realize anyways. I don't want to get too carried off. Welcome, guys. Welcome, Clinical Sword. There's something coming, and it's like a storm for our inner realms, and that's how I feel it. And it's the need for the human being to realize that its savior is the origin of its free will. You see, right now, I when I looked at who I am as a human being, when I looked at history, I realized it's still in a natural setting. But can you imagine your grandkids not knowing whether they're a computer program or not? Can you imagine a civilization that is using all the resources of the earth to trap its attention in a virtual reality, the most meaningless usage of the planet? You know, it's like pretty much an ostrich putting its head in the ground, you know, and nothing progresses. So Clinical Sword, I just saw your comment. What story exactly? Because I'm not sure what you're referring to. You mean the story of the science fiction? The science fiction I was talking about? Okay, long story short, at the end of that chapter, Rasul gets access to the center of the ocean and the mountain peak, which is a whirlpool. And pretty much I was inspired by this idea that there's a volcano. Okay, so we see lava pouring out, but we've never seen an ocean on a mountain peak, right? And so I was inspired. It was a very unique idea to kind of project. And so what happens is Rasul, the whole point there at the ocean at the mountain peak is because Jessica Nova, his robotic friend, got a vision, and the robotic friend is like a Native American shaman, you know, and the robotic shaman kind of tells them only two people have ever entered this what do you call it, this the hole at the center of the mountain peak, the ocean at the top of the mountain peak. And the idea of it is that the mountain chooses you. Okay, so what happens in the science fiction story is that Justica Nova tells Rasul, the robotic shaman guy, tells Rasul this idea that tells her the story of the mountain. And the story of the mountain is there was this, and the robot, the way I've written it, the robot is so cool because when he talks about people, he talks about them as programs. And so he talks about this female program, do you know? Or this program of this female yogi, which I got inspired by connecting the word Rinpoche and Adi Yogi. So there was this, I created this enlightened sage, this female, how can I tell, this incredibly enlightened woman, like this sort of goddess level character, okay? Because usually when you go look at ancient mysticism, it's just, it seems like the guys got the microphone first. So in this example, it's this enlightened woman, okay, and this enlightened woman gets a vision, like the soul of the universe can speak to her, and the soul of the universe tells her, you have to climb this mountain, go up here, and she goes up the mountain, and the mountain is like this cold and stormy kind of thing, do you know? But when she got to the top, when Rasul and Justa Carnova are walking on the mountain is not. It's like normal. It's not snowy. But at the time of the story of this lady who started, she walks to the top of the mountain on the snowy. Imagine like she's climbing the snowy mountain. She gets to the top. The top is a dimension, is a desert. So the story Justica Nova is telling Rasul about the only two people. One of them is Dante, who I told you the programmer that they're looking for. That's why they're at the mountain. And then before Dante was Adiyogi Rinpoche, where all the I's and zeros are written with 1 and 0. So it's a name number word. Adiyogi Rinpoche, right? And Justica Nova is saying the story, right? And Justica Nova is a shaman, so you can say he's one of the rare robots in the robotic realms that's conscious of metaphysics, you know. And his story, Justica Nova's story, is epic too. But anyways, I'll tell you this. So this woman goes into this desert, okay? So she climbs the snowy mountain, gets to the top, and it's suddenly like a different dimension. And she goes into this desert, and the voice, this intuitive guiding logos of the world, is telling her that she has to go sit in the center. And she walks, and she's enduring through such thirst. And the voice says, now that you have come to the center of this desert, just nothing but sand everywhere, do you know? And she sits there, and it said legend, and I wrote it like legend has it that she endured 300. I don't know if it was, I think it was 300 or 3,000, I don't remember the number, but it was like 300 years of thirst in 3 minutes. So her inner experience was like 3 minutes of just being still and silent sitting in that desert, but actually in reality 300 years of her holding her thirst had occurred. And then after she holds it, she steps out of that samadhi, suddenly she notices her thirst is gone automatically, and she notices that from she's as if she remains hovering, as if she sat on a force field, like a there's a board like a force field underneath her, so she's hovering just where she sat, and underneath her an ocean, a whirlpool from her where she was begins occurring, and the whirlpool becomes like this dark hole into the center of the mountain, and this woman just slowly levitates into the mountain, and that's the legend. And the moment Justica Nova tells this to Rasul, his inner realms tell him what to do next, and Rasul just sits down, and a light comes around him, and he just automatically is hovered and taken by the mountain and taken inside the mountain, inside the hole where literally no one can climb down. It's like a whirlpool tunnel to the center of the mountain. So Rasul, suddenly the mountain accepts him, and in that moment, Justica Nova, I think I've written one of the greatest sentences, in science fiction history. You know, in that moment, Justica Nova puts his hands like a prayer above his head, and I remember writing the last line of the chapter: "Robots don't cry, but they reboot." And Justica Nova sees something. This robot it's so divine what he sees. His system shuts down. He just reboots, you know. Now, in another chapter, you realize that ocean, the mountain peak, is a galactic embassy. It's an embassy for galactic beings. You know, that's why it was like to outsiders, oh my God, divine sacred mountain. But to actually, it was a hidden galactic embassy. And Dante was a star being that had access to that embassy, you know. But Rasul doesn't know this, and it's very profound what happens. Anyways, that's as far as that science fiction story goes, clinical sword. But but to acknowledge the lighthouse of the title of this talk that is calling me. Actually, guys, I need a quick intermission. I'll be right back. So, guys, I'm back. uh, so yeah, guys. I mean, that science fiction work is in progress. There is so many unique chapters to it, and it's written in such a strange way that I don't know. There's certain projects I've just. I mean, hopefully, um, I feel I'll get there. I feel soon I'll have an opportunity to do this full time, and then it's going to be a writer's life. Hopefully, the universe will open those doors for me. But back to the ideals that are the fingers that play the piano keys of the soul. Anyways, guys, the idea is an advanced civilization is coming soon to theaters near, coming soon to a world near you. So I feel this is the thing. I feel I have found an algorithm, and this algorithm I feel is a solution to all the inefficiencies that we're experiencing as human beings. And there is an inner and outer component to this. There is an inner technology and an outer technology. The inner technology evolves through human beings caring about emotional stability and updating and improving language and communication. The external technology comes from actually being fundamentally, this is the main idea of phase one of Civilization 2.0, which is to build sky cities. More crucial than any technology is this technology, the sky city technology. And if there are billionaires out there, I feel help this idea. The civilization here's the plan, guys. Pretty much Civilization 2.0 is what I find to be a solution that in probably less than 3,000 years, we're not going to only have a perfect Earth, but we're going to be the most advanced technology and also leaping towards interstellar vision. And I feel that human beings We have endured on earth. We are living on the surface of the earth. And could our ownership of land, just like how the person owns themselves as an idea, the ownership of land is also the ownership of a more solid idea, you know? I see that on this sphere, in the middle of nowhere on this rock, we have literally taken ownership of the surface of this rock. Therefore, resources have been limited to certain nations. Now, national identity was crucial, and it was even more crucial. That means I can't say anything against nationalism. Let me tell you why. Because nationalism was one of the most crucial factors when people were speaking random languages. It nationalized, it brought a single language in motion. That means before there was English, before there was German, before there was French, before there were Japanese, there were pretty much a bunch of people speaking different languages of their own. And then it began becoming nationalized, it began becoming singular. So if you look at history, pretty much things are either spreading out or they're coming back in. It's another way of me, I've said it where it's like, either the knowledge is becoming singular or it's becoming infinite. And when it becomes singular, it gets access to the void. When it becomes infinite, it is the movement of the void. That means the void has no opinion. That means, believe it or not, the in a strange way, nothing happens to the soul, regardless of what happens to the mind and body. It's like the body is living a life, and its blind spot is the mind, and the mind is living a life, and its blind spot is the soul. And the soul is life. It is not living a life. It is the energy. It is pretty much something in space is conscious as energy, and it is field like. And our minds are designed as antennas of sensory perception. And once this sensory perception is processed at a certain speed, then one's own inner realms will be seen 100% as distinct from the outer realms. So the person will realize that we're actually existing in two dimensions, and the problem of all our wars has been where we've been trying to be in one world. This is why I say civilization 2.0 is a yin yang civilization. It is a civilization that if we are egos, and we are limited to the dualistic edges of language, we at least use it well. You know, it's kind of like every moment has a ratio of efficiency and inefficiency potential. The efficiency potential is seeing a possibility, and for me, actually, guys, I'll tell you, I don't have this mentality that answers should be always in an instant. I feel that when you see life as a process, then your mind can never be alone. But if you see life as particles, then you are as alone as an atom in space, as atoms in space, stardust just hovering. That means, do you think stardust calls itself stardust? No, it is the unique state of mind that man is in. Man's mind is projecting the world. Like when I look at all the objects in the room I'm sitting now, and I ask myself, what are these? The question, the answer are not physical. They are visible through subjective design, but they are not physical. That means when I close my eyes and visualize, um, you know, uh, let's say, is to some degree restricted to the inner realms. Because when you look at every moment, what do you see? What do you see, dear human being? What do you see every moment? You see an object, right? You see objects. You see your body. You're like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is an object. You look at your room and you're like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is an object. And then you're like, but what is is an object aware? It's an object. Is that even possible? Can a thought have a thought? And that's where I saw kind of how shallow the linguistic simulation is being conducted. You know, Of course, I'm in a love and hate relationship with language. That means it's kind of like a knife that you can use to cut fruit, or you can use to bring inefficiency. So you see, it's like it's too mechanical. Human life is too artificial. When you look at, for example, the self-help industry, too artificial. Do you see? It's like the human being is looking. It's like the child when he was young, wanted toys. Now you can say the old man wants knowledge. You know, but that knowledge, sometimes you have to get rid of the future component of it. When you sometimes don't let the future just animate too quickly in your subjective realms, you get a chance to look at what's here now, and it may surprise you. Do you know? I've had many moments where I've noticed it's as if throughout the day I was not even living, I was not even on this earth. I was in my vision of the future of the earth. And so it took me a while to kind of realize that the subjective realms, it's pretty much this. If the objective realms move faster than the subjective realms, you feel you're a body. If the subjective realms move faster than the objective realms, you feel like you're a mind. Now, which one are you? The yogi said the seer of the seen is unseen. So I think it's okay to let every human being know that if you are considering consciousness existing in matter, why not consider it also existing in space? I remember having a discussion with someone, and I kind of said like the soul. I kind of the way I see it is that the soul can't have a personality. Doesn't even make sense to have a personality. Like, how can it have a personality? You know, and there was a sort of kind of retaliation against what I said in the room, and I remember kind of saying something like, let me see how I explained it. Um, if we see, if we imagine you're a person who's entertaining a sort of metaphysical lifestyle, okay? Uh, so imagine you are a person, you're like, yo, I'm a soul. Imagine you suddenly got this idea, okay? There are people on this earth that this is happening to. you know they're like, yo, what if I'm a soul? Now that soul is a consideration of, all right, there is a body and the soul is in the body. So anybody who considers the idea of a soul is considering, again, like a driver in the vehicle, and the driver is not the vehicle. Okay, now let me tell you, this is what I say this. So Mr. Within's comment would be, if existence has shown us that consciousness is awake in matter, what are the chances of consciousness, the soul, using space as its body, inhabiting space simultaneously as it's inhabiting a body? So, what if your body is actually a field, a space? Pure Land Buddhism took one towards this direction. It was the evolution of a self in a world inside a self. For me, the mind is a performance I watch. I don't know how many people do this, but I watch my own mind. I watch how the moment happens, not per se with a preconditioned expectation of importance. I just watch it. It's like when you watch a squirrel moving on the branches of a tree, what idea do you have in your head? You're just watching, So it's just, so the simplicity and the presence of the sensory perception can actually uh, revert the attention back into how it has always been a field of its own movement. You're a field of activity. Our minds are like waves in an ocean of intelligence, and our bodies are kind of like particles in space. I feel that there's one view that the person doesn't have knowledge and needs to find it. And then there's a view and mindset where knowledge is here. The person just needs to access it. As if all ideas ever fathomable are like a palette of colors, you know? So it's as if all these colors can be drawn, can be used. So for me, my subjective realms, I don't really I don't really touch thought, believe it or not. Even though I give these talks, I don't identify with the language that is just a reflection of the moment in a snapshot modality. When you realize the world is changing, you also realize that your eyes are evolving from the known into the unknown, and we have feared the unknown through storytelling. Socrates, he was sentenced by the old school of the old men of Athens. He was like pretty much considered he was spreading around his own ideas on the divine when there were strict laws on what metaphysics was allowed. So, just like how physics has certain restrictions of what ideas it entertains, metaphysics back in the day where they saw like an ancient mythological kind of perspective, a person coming and talking about a different kind of divinity would be different. It's as if the gods are walking on the clouds and it's undebatable. So that's a sort of strict metaphysics. So Socrates finds himself entering the court and he says some profound things. He says something like, I have new enemies from now, and I have enemies that are ancient enemies. As if like he has certain karmic beef with other transmigrating souls or something. And so, right when he's in that court, he tells them about the inner oracle. And he tells them that there's been this intuitive kind of guidance behind his eyes in every moment that has kind of place. Anytime the inner voice would say, go in that room, he would go. So it was a sort of him. He had, like Socrates, you can say, his guardian angel was the universal mind. That means he was such a important pencil in history that he was being held very tightly by the unknown will. That means it's like I'm telling you, there's certain things in life that once you are okay with what you are, that is a supreme protection. And when I say protection, what it means is that what can happen to any complex mindset? It breaks down into simplicity. Isn't failure a reversion back to a simplicity after an attempted complexity? So if you're okay uh, 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 with the bottom, then you're okay with the top. If you are not okay with the bottom, you will complain at the top. So when the mind appears to itself as not a container, the archetype strangely feels it has nothing to lose, and for the first time, it becomes a sort of wave where, like, the person's been under the impression that they are one kind of self, but that sense of self suddenly, as if vibrates, and the person sees that it's a plethora. It's like this multiple archetypes are there. I'm telling you, who you think you are right now is just the signal you're getting now as a being. You know? So, guys, I have the Avaduta Gita here somehow, like this booklet, and I'm going to read you some random passages from random pages I'm going to open from. So, why does thou, this is from the Avaduta Gita, why does thou desire affluence? Thou hast no wealth. Why dost thou desire affluence? Thou hast no wife. Why dost thou desire affluence? Thou hast none who is thine own. I am the nectar of knowledge, homogeneous existence like the sky. Birth in this universe of false appearances is neither thine nor mine. This shameless mind appears as differentiated. This, devoid of difference and non-difference, is neither mine nor thine. I am the nectar of knowledge, homogeneous existence like the sky. Thou hast not the nature of non-attachment in the slightest, nor hast thou in the slightest the nature of attachment. Thou hast not even the slightest of the nature of desire. I am the nectar of knowledge, homogeneous existence like the sky. In thy mind there is neither the meditator, meditation, nor the object of meditation. Thou hast no samadhi. There is no region outside thee, nor is there any substance or time. I am the nectar of knowledge, homogeneous existence, like the sky. I'm going to open one more random page, guys. The word Om is like the sky. It is not the discernment of the essence of high and low. How can there be enunciation of the point of the word Om, which annuals the manifestation of the unmanifest? Just a sec, guys, I'm going to read that again. How can there be enunciation of the point of the word Om, which annuls the manifestation of the unmanifest? He who has seen his true self, which is innate, unborn, and incomprehensible, does not, if anything desired happens to him, become tainted. Being free from taint, he never he never performs any action. The man of self-restraint or the ascetic therefore is never bound. Okay, guys, huge point here. So this is an ancient book. So what it's kind of saying is that the field of our mind where intelligence is present is incomprehensible unknown activity, and when you realize something unknown is occurring during all the phenomenology you acknowledge known, then you don't your attention automatically goes on the direct experiential fascination of the unknown. Okay, in all the systems that took man to his inner realm, whether it was Carl Jung, whether it was Terence McKenna, whether it was Ludwig Wittgenstein, various minds, various philosophers, the list is endless of continental philosophers. But it's what one can see that their effort was to go as far as they can. So it's as if your intellect is fully utilized. Now, the edge of the intellect will lead to a moment where the intellect has to trust its resurrection. And it's pretty much a phoenix that is rising up from the ashes, and he's like, here we go again. It's about presence beyond personality. The world is, language worshiping everything, so personality is our obsession. You see, it's like people. I see it. I just see it when people communicate, that they are communicating to be seen, not communicating what is actually there in their as their intelligence. Do you know? And I'm telling you, it's like it's something that it's ultimately it's a decision, especially as a person who's a speaker, any human being who is going to go speak to others. You gotta at some point understand that once the artwork is out, it's no longer yours, which is an ancient. It's not an ancient saying. I don't know who said it. Some artist said it, but it was the idea is that other people's experiences. It's as if like saying, your. It's like the eldest son of the family leaving the house. The artwork has gone into its own engagement of different universes. It's I find it interesting that in Western cultures we find external freedom and inner enslavement. In Eastern cultures, we find external enslavement and inner freedom. How hilarious is that? What is the world trying to say? The world's trying to say we've gotten it upside down. The unknown is worth living for. That's the greatest gift that the mind can bestow the world. As the poet Rumi would say, before death comes, uh, no, sorry, he says, before, yeah, before death comes, give away all there is to give. And what he meant is that realize, dear being, the body is destined to make the mind feel it suddenly empty handed. And that's why it's crucial to become conscious of your presence of mind. That was the whole point of Zen. There's this epic story of this Zen master in his youth. He was like a kind of, you know, energetic kid. And so this kid in this Zen monastery, this kind of like enlightened kid, he breaks this vase, this ancient vase, and he sees the headmaster's kind of Zen master's kind of like walking through the halls, coming to that room. He quickly picks up the pieces of all the visible pieces of the vase, puts it behind him. His hands are behind his back, and he quickly goes to the headmaster. And he goes to the headmaster and he does a slight bow and he says, "Sir, can you give me a teaching on what is death?" And he's a young kid. He's like maybe like 9 or maybe like 10, 10-year-old kid, you know. And so the Zen master's like, "Whoa, this 10-year-old kid's asking me about teachings on death. I am so proud." And he starts telling the kid all sorts of things, you know. He says that it's like the ultimate confrontation of life. It is the presence of your attention and all these different ideas. It's as if death is as void as the attention that is on it. You know, and so it's suddenly the kid's just listening and the man's like, wow, this kid's taking it all in, the head Zen master. you know then at the end of it, the man is proud and he's like, I'm really, I think you have potential, kid. And the Zen master and the kid looks at the Zen master and says, thank you for the teachings on death, sir. I also wanted to let you know your vase died. And the kid shows the broken vase, and the Zen master is like, "Oh my God, is this Dennis the Menace? Like, what is this?" Something I really love. about the artist that drew this picture for the wallpaper I've chosen is that it's as if the right hand is trying to stop the left hand's transformation into the unnatural. Civilization 2.0 is a yin yang civilization. And what that means is its morality is interpreted differently than how morality is interpreted now. Morality right now is that we look at a person and we say, is that a good person or a bad person? But in a yin yang civilization, civilization 2.0, the relationship of the person is going to be, it's as if when we come to see what the person did, it's as if their attention, chaos and order both exist, and it's the choice and the decisions of the being that govern its attention to the chaos and order, you know? So a yin yang civilization doesn't see good and bad people, sees people whose attention is on good or bad phenomena, or it has good or bad outcomes, The, the morality of civilization 2.0 will not per se be inspired by religious axioms. It will be inspired by the simple idea of efficiency, inefficiency. And that efficiency and inefficiency is going to be judged and considered on a level of the self and the world. So it's like we're going to look at the person, what they did that was efficient for their self, what they did that was inefficient for the self, and whatever that was that they did, how was it efficient for the world, how was it inefficient for the world. Sorry guys, I'm just writing something down really quickly. Really, guys, it's pretty much I had this idea that we should take the whole civilization uh, to live in the orbit and in sky cities at least. And in that 2000-year period, phase two of civilization 2.0 would be built, I call it heaven on earth, or the heavenization, or heaven, earth heavena is the term I've kind of decided for it. And earth heavena is a word I've created where it means, I've chosen, which means the heavenized earth. That means we pretty much built heaven. We turned earth into heaven. Okay, and so by taking the human influence off the surface of the earth and letting it breathe, now during that time we replant the earth, all the people, botanists and ethnobotanists around the world suddenly find purpose, you know. All advancements in plant studies can have an opportunity to demonstrate themselves at that point. Now, phase three of Civilization 2.0 would be, what do we do in that 2,000 years that we are in our sky cities? And pretty much there's two directions. We advance our inner technologies and our outer technologies. Okay, our outer technologies would be interstellar. We would go, as a civilization, from by we in that 2,000 year time period of living in our orbit, we will try to become interstellar, you know, an interstellar civilization, interstellar blueprints and visions for pretty much like treating the uh, galaxy as our home, you know. So, but the inner technologies are going to be the evolution of language into the godlike experience of cyberspace culture. So pretty much, I realized that if we remain on Earth in the next, let's say, like we like the main idea is to get the civilization as quickly as possible into the sky. And think about it. That's the idea of an intelligent city, because when it's in the sky, the problem of overpopulation is solved. We have access to three-dimensional space. No longer overpopulation is only an issue in two-dimensional. Sorry, guys, I'm writing something again. Okay, perfect, guys. I'm trying to all this stuff I'm saying here. I've started writing as of today, so just taking some notes. um, yeah, guys. So phase three would be, while we're living in our sky cities, what do we do? And so, if we were to live on the Earth, we would be, again. I brought this idea, but I'm going to share it again. It, that the resources would be all used up, and when the resources are all used up, um, we're pretty much using all our resources to trap ourselves in a technological box. We can at least do that in our orbit and discover its consequences. And the idea of just imagining people kind of looking down on the earth, it would be a contemplative era of our species, you know? And I don't know how this is going to happen, but in my mind, I just see this beautiful vision that once the universe, we create that sort of epic technology that can do this, that can make perfect, 100, 110% kind of uh, uh, adequate enough of a sky city technology. What we fear, we cannot control because we're trying to avoid. You can only control what you dare to look at, dare to be conscious of, dare to grace your consciousness with. There is nothing more valuable than attention. Attention is life. And the attention of the human being has been on meaningless individual self gratification and an avoidance of collective responsibility, which now more than ever is crucial. This collective responsibility, we had certain leaders come and paint narratives of unity, and before huge technological advancements, we were still fascinated with each other's minds. Now we are more fascinated with the product of each other's minds. You know, as the world becomes more sophisticated, all the value systems in that world also can become sophisticated. An advanced civilization is coming, and we're simply choosing how to plant the seeds. And if we do nothing, we're planting a kind of seed. And if we do something, we're planting a kind of seed. And I don't know how to say it, but this whole idea is that I feel there's enough conscious living beings that are aware of the subjective realm, the language threshold, and how life is more than just particles moving, it's a process. So it's a process where we have conscious access to. So ultimately, the evolution of knowledge is the evolution of consciousness to space and matter. And consciousness is like unknown space, or let me say it like this: awareness is unknown space, and matter, or let me say it like this: Purusha Prakriti, consciousness and matter. One is unknown space, the other is the known stuff, the known matter in the space. Okay. I feel that we must all be explorers of not just our outer realm, but our inner realm. And the quality of life experience, I find, increases. It's a strange sort of luxury. It's a luxury of the inner realms when you are not resisting phenomenology. So you see, if I'll tell you this. Before 2011, I remember I attempted writing, and it was as if I was forcing with a lot of energy for something to be there. But do you know, sometimes the only way I endure giving these talks is because there eventually, first there's a certain structure, a sort of finger on the piano key. Then it becomes no longer your attention is on the fingers on the piano key. It is on the music, you know. And every moment has music, which your sensory perception is kind of like instrumenting it. Our minds are the only portals for now we know of. And a portal is a suggestion of two worlds in the same moment. To the connection of dimensions is our intelligence. So, anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Civilization 2.0. I'll definitely talk more about it. Pretty much, it's a very principal ideology now, and a lot of the foundation of what I speak about. So whoever's listening, thanks for tuning in. Much blessings and namaste. And one thing I would say, just in case if my voice may echo to the ears of some child lost in a cyberspace simulation, without the truth, the illusion doesn't exist. The truth has to be there before the concept of the illusion exists. That means whatever is happening, there is presence and an awareness of, how can I say it, the inseparability of the microcosm and the macrocosm. You know, the inseparability of the presence and the personality. That is where man and world are no longer at war, and karma uh, was just a shadow, no longer there once you look at where the light's coming from, where the direct experience is happening. So, yeah, much blessings and namaste.